Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Bun Med where we discuss concise medical knowledge you can fit inside of a bun. Today we will be discussing the roles and structural anatomy of the lymphatic system. Now, when it comes to the roles of the lymphatic system in the body, there are a couple of important things to think about. The first one is that the lymphatic system plays a very important role in fighting infection, and it contains a number of white blood cells, for example these plasma cells, to help fight pathogens. Additionally, it's important for the regulation of fluid. Now, in our body, of course, we have cells that require nutrients such as glucose and oxygen, and for those nutrients to get from the blood into the cells, they will essentially need a mode of transport which is known as the interstitial fluid. So this interstitial fluid will move from the arteries and will bathe those cells with nutrients, and then it can be reabsorbed back into the arterial system. Now, the majority of it will be reabsorbed into the arterial system. However, some of it will still remain around the cells. And it's important that the lymphatic system is able to mop up that extra fluid. Otherwise, it can build up and lead to edema. The third point links to the second point about fluid regulation that I've mentioned, and that is maintaining osmotic and hydrostatic pressures. Now, here we have a diagrammatic representation of a capillary. So on the left-hand side, you have the arterial side of the capillary, and then on the right-hand side, we have the venous aspect. So if we think about the arteries themselves, I'm sure you're aware that the pressures in the arterial system are very high. And so if we do have fluid in the arterial side of the capillary, it will get pushed out. And this is known as the hydrostatic pressure. As we move towards the venous aspect, the hydrostatic pressure will begin to reduce, and this is because of friction and other forces that are playing a role. Now, when it comes to the venous end, we have osmotic pressure, and this is the pressure that's produced due to the presence of proteins such as albumin within the capillaries. And so these will help to move that fluid back into the into the capillary. Finally, we have the importance of transporting lipids from the intestinal system into the blood, which can then be used by the body. Now, when these lipids are within the lymphatic system or within lymph, then this fluid is known as chyle. Okay, so let's have a look at the anatomy of the lymphatic system in more detail. So, as I've mentioned, there are a number of organs that play a role within the lymphatic system, and these include the tonsils, thymus, and spleen. And in terms of lymph itself, it's passively pumped around the body. So, rather than something primarily pushing lymph around the body, there are actually three key things that help the lymph to be pushed around the body. The first one is the arteries. So the arteries are in close proximity to the lymphatic circulation, and therefore when the arteries pulsate, they will produce a pressure, and that pressure will help the lymph to move around the body. The second reason is because of muscle contraction. So when the muscles contract, this will again cause the lymph to move around where it needs to. And there is also a third reason which we will have a look at in the next slide. So let's start off by looking at the basis of the lymphatic circulation. And it all starts off with the lymph capillaries. Now the lymph capillaries are the starting point, and they will essentially collect the lymph, and they have valves in order to prevent the leakage of lymph flowing back. Just the same, the collecting vessels will then, the lymph capillaries will then drain into the collecting vessels, and again these have valves in order to prevent backflow of lymph. These collecting vessels will then drain into the lymph nodes, which will drain into the lymphatic trunks, and then into the lymphatic ducts. Now, two important examples to remember is the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic. the majority, around 75% of lymph, drains into the thoracic duct, and the rest drains into the right lymphatic. So the right upper half of the body is drained by the right lymphatic, and the rest, including the left upper half and the right and left lower parts of the body, are all drained by the thoracic duct. Finally, the ducts will then drain into the vein and enter the systemic circulation. And in this case, the examples to think about are the jugular and the subclavian. And if you think about the location of these veins, you'll notice that they're actually both located in the upper half of the body. And why might this be? Pause the video and have a think about this, and I will continue with the presentation. Okay, so the reason is the pressures. So of course, in the upper half of the body, we have the lungs, and the lungs produce a negative pressure. And this negative pressure helps lymph to flow into the vein. And of course, this is important because lymph is not actively pumped around the body. So that's everything for today. Thank you for watching the video, and feel free to leave any questions or comments below. Otherwise, it would massively help us if you could like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.